Well, let's discuss Nigeria's Federal Executive Cabinet today approving a fresh 4.8 billion naira into the healthcare sector. Let's have this conversation further. This sector, public funding. Arise State House correspondent Adesuwa Omoruan in our Abuja studios. Good evening, Adesuwa. It's good to see you on the show tonight. Thank you very much for coming through. How much more about this funding approval by the President's Cabinet do we know?
Thank you so much, Bolson, for having me on Arise Exchange. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
So what we know so far is that this is domestic funding. And according to the Nigerian government, through the Minister of Health, it is crisis mode activated, really, with Trump in power and executive powers that we have seen that has affected global aid in recent times. But what the Nigerian government is saying is that they sort of prepared ahead in a way. You recall that in 2023, the Nigerian government put in place what is called the Health Compact, where you have the 36 state governors, including the Federal Capital Territory, the federal government, and donor agencies signing a pact to ensure that they increase funding for healthcare services. But for this 4.8 billion naira that was approved yesterday during the first FEC meeting for the year, not a lot of details were given as to how this funding is coming about, but what we are told is that it is domestic funding. It is time to look inwards. Nigeria has been doing that since 2023 under the administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the health sector. A lot of questions abound, Bolson, as to could we have done this earlier before Trump? The answer is yes. Would this make any difference? I guess the answer is yes, but we'll wait to see how much of an impact it makes.
Very interesting. I'm sure we all remember the COVID-19 pandemic and all the moves back then in Nigeria, and indeed the rest of Africa should focus more on indigenous healthcare sector, providing our own vaccines, producing them locally, supporting universities and other institutions to do local research and what have you, and the move for us to do that. I remember Afreximbank was leading that particular campaign across Africa, and Nigeria was keen into that. What else are you hearing about how the government is looking to react and re-strategize following the raft of policy actions coming through from the new U.S. president in healthcare sector and even beyond that?
Indeed. Bolson, like I said, I like to describe this whole situation as crisis mode activated. When it comes to humanitarian aid across the globe, the fact remains that the U.S. is the single largest donor. Unlike infrastructure, railroads, airports, construction in Africa, where you see the signposts of China, you don't really see the U.S. signposts across the continent that way. You see it in a different way in humanitarian aid. And they're very big on healthcare, in particular, the HIV and AIDS treatment. So what the Nigerian government has done a step further, which was announced yesterday as well by the Minister of Health, the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, is that Nigeria has now set up a committee. It's a multi-ministerial committee that is also co-opting the Nigerian Governors Forum. It will have the Ministers of Defense, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Environment, and one other ministry, I forget at this time, the Ministry of Finance. What this committee is to do is to put in place a sustainability plan as the U.S. aid reduction comes into place. But we must emphasize at this moment, Bolson, that because there has been a lot of confusion and uncertainty for the number of people who are living with HIV and AIDS, they're wondering what is going to happen. We've heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio say there are some waivers. That waiver includes the HIV treatment. It also includes 55 countries, including Nigeria. So for the next 90 days, we do know that those aid treatment, those aid packages will continue to come. But what happens after then is what the Nigerian government says it is trying to tackle with the multi-ministerial committee it has put in place. We don't know the name of the committee. We don't know their full scope, but we do know it is put in place to reshape treatment and response to HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, which the US government has been funding for many years now. But there are also questions, Bosin, whichever way you turn, because some of the challenges that has been raised by the US government is how these fundings they have been pushing for many years have been spent. So there will be questions about accountability and transparency. So should the Nigerian government take over, for instance, the treatment of these diseases? How do we ensure that every kobo and every naira, which I know you're very particular about on Arise Exchange, how do we ensure that we are able to account for those kobos and nairas? How do we ensure that those people who are living with these diseases, by the way, which the world hopes to tackle and eradicate by 2030, that's another 5-6 years if my maths are correct. How do we ensure that we'll make the target, the people get the life-saving drugs, and those monies that we do dish out, if we eventually find them, get to the people that need them?
I guess the message from Washington, Donald Trump from the White House, is we should all put our house in order, put our mouth where our money is, and vice versa, and put our hands to the till.
It's a wake-up call,
really.
It's a
wake-up call. I agree with you. I agree with you. Thank you so much. We've got a whole lot to do there at the State House. Thank you so much for those updates. Adesuwa, Omoruan, State House correspondent at the Villa. Thank you so much from our Abuja studios tonight.